People are seeing day and night the slaughter. As I sit and do an interview with you, people are dying. Bombs are exploding. Who knows who's next? Will they target our house? Will they target a few streets to the south? Will they target the studio that I'm in? Will they target who will they target? Who will they kill next? And it's all just by chance. If you look at the places that they bombed, often poor neighborhoods, working class neighborhoods, middle class neighborhoods, to the east of the city, to the west of the city, to the north of the city, to the south of the city, everywhere. They just slaughter. And so these young kids, except for I'm sure some people are, they'll always close their eyes to reality. But the decent ones, they've all seen the reality of the United States. And so I think that the United States is going to have to wait another decade or two in order to create another generation of that has a substantial young set of people who believe their nonsense. But hopefully by then there will be no more American empire. My hope is that it will end in a very short period of time.
Mohammad, the administration here in the United States is very clear that it wants nothing short of regime change. At the same time, all Iran has to do to win is to survive. How do you see this ending? Donald Trump said a couple of days ago that he could see carrying out these attacks for weeks. Well, attacks for weeks isn't going to change anything. Iran is an enormous country. It has 92 million people. Its economy is diversified even under sanctions. Its military is spread out. It has a navy. So what does defeat for the West and victory for Iran look like to an Iranian?
I've been informed today by a significant political figure that Iran plans to continue this war until the midterms in the United States. And they are planning to force the United States to leave. And the more this war escalates, the darker it becomes for US allies across the region. For the Arab family dictatorships in the Persian Gulf, this, if it continues for much longer, they won't survive. Remember, these are all dictatorships, family dictatorships. And the passport holders in these small entities are sometimes 10, 15% of the whole population. So in the Emirates, you have 1.4 million people who are Emiratis. The rest, the 10 million or so, I guess, they're there. But if the state collapses, those slaves and indentured servants and the underclass, they may have something to say about the future of the Emirates or Qatar or Kuwait and so on, and Bahrain. So if this war lasts much longer, I don't see how these entities survive. None of them have a history. They're not civilization states. They don't have that sort of identity. None of them have an ideology. I mean, the Iranians have Islam, and of course, Shia Islam has a particular essence to it. It supports the oppressed. It fights against the oppressor. It's steadfast. It has no fear of martyrdom for the right cause, to support the downtrodden. And this is heavily influenced, of course, by the Prophet, his son-in-law, and of course the martyrdom of Imam Hussein in Karbala, and his sister, and the role that his sister played. I mean, if the American elites had read something about Imam Hussein, they would have thought twice before taking on Iran and the axis of resistance. So Iran will be steadfast, and they will be bloody because this Epstein regime is ruthless. But Iran will see this through, and it will do what it takes. And those proxies of the United States, they will pay the price if the United States keeps pushing, because they're all complicit. They all host U.S. bases. The U.S. conspired against us through those bases. As we speak, they're using their airspace. As we speak, they're using their territory to fire missiles from the ground, from the surface to Iran. So at the moment, the Iranians are focusing on U.S. assets and assets linked to the U.S. But it could get worse. If the Iranians, if for whatever reason, the Iranians and the United States get into, if the war between them escalates, there will be escalation in Iraq, there will be escalation in Yemen, and I think that you will see the destruction of all the tankers that are now stuck in the Persian Gulf, and you will see the destruction of oil and gas installations. And that will bring down the global economy.
It will. It will. The Strait of Hormuz being just the start of something like that. Mohammed, the Washington
Just one
Post
thing,
today.
John. Just
Yes,
one
of course.
thing. Iran is shutting the Strait of Hormuz without destroying anything to warn the Americans that this is what is going to happen. And Trump now says that he's going to open the Strait of Hormuz. He doesn't have a chance in the world to do it. His ships are far, far away out of fear of Iranian missiles. His planes are far away. That's why every time they bomb, they have to refuel and refuel again to get back because of Iranian drones and missiles. So Iran is in full control. There's nothing that the United States can do about it. And therefore, if push comes to shove, then you'll see the price of oil go to what, $250 a barrel? And then when the markets crash, then everyone will be wondering who did this. And even the MAGA people, who obviously have no moral principles because forever wars are okay, hiding the Epstein files is okay, even shooting white people in the face are okay. All that's okay now. But when they lose their jobs and their factories, the factories that they work at collapse, and the businesses go bankrupt, and the price of gasoline becomes unaffordable, and they have no money to pay for the gasoline, I think they'll be trying to figure out who is behind this.
Mohammed, the Washington Post asked a rhetorical question on its front page today. It said that Russia and China are close friends of Iran. Why aren't they helping? First of all, are they not helping? And second, can you comment on the current relationship, whether it's diplomatic or military, between Iran and Russia and China?
There's no doubt that they're working together, they're cooperating. Iran is purchasing weapons and doing business with them. I have no doubt. I don't know any details, but the relationships between these two countries are quite good. And by the way, the Russians are benefiting big time. While Europe is paying extra prices, a higher price for energy, and the price of gas is going up even faster because of Qatar than the price of oil. And this is really bad news for Western countries.
I want to come right back to that. But first, we're going to take a quick sponsor break. Thanks for bearing with us. Right now, we're watching two major flashpoints unfold at the same time. The takedown of El Mencho has thrown Mexico into chaos, and U.S.-Iran tensions are escalating faster than anything we've seen in years, all the way to full-out war. Here's what most people don't realize. Every time global instability spikes like this, one asset surges: gold. It happened after 9/11. It happened during the 2008 financial crisis. It happened when Russia invaded Ukraine. And it's happening again right now. Well, there's a free report now called the Global Crisis Playbook that lays out exactly what's going on and what it means for your retirement. It includes a step-by-step guide to moving your retirement into physical gold, tax-free and penalty-free, plus a 7-point checklist experts say every retiree should complete before the next crisis hits. I don't think you're going to hear this on the evening news, but if you have a 401k, an IRA, or any retirement savings, this is worth reading. Simply go to johnlovesgold.com and get your free copy. That's johnlovesgold.com, or call toll-free 888-GOLD-053 to request your free copy. Healthcare in this country is heavily influenced by politics and large pharmaceutical companies. Politics change, access changes, and medications that were once easy to get can suddenly become harder to access. That's why you need a place like All Family Pharmacy. They're a licensed U.S. pharmacy focused on access and transparency, not on politics. In most areas of life, we prepare financially, for security, for emergencies. Preparing your medicine cabinet should be no different. Instead of getting a small supply and running back every 30 days for refills, you can order ahead and keep a 3 to 6 month supply on hand. Prescribes it if appropriate, and your medicine ships directly to your door. Healthcare shouldn't depend on politics or on corporate gatekeeping. Stock up today and save 10% on your essential medications. What about the nuclear program, Mohammad? And let me preface this. The CIA said there was no nuclear program. They said it twice in 2 national intelligence estimates. The consensus of all of the American intelligence organizations was that there was no nuclear program. Ayatollah Khamenei issued a fatwa years ago forbidding the development of a nuclear weapon. Of course, the Israelis worked hard to convince the world that this was all a trick, and of course there was a nuclear weapon. And ever since the 1990s, Iran was only 6 months away from developing this nuclear weapon. Well, a friend of mine made a comment the other day that struck me as very important. We're not talking today about North Korea. Why are we not talking about North Korea? Because the North Koreans have a nuclear weapon, and no one dares challenge them. So perhaps Iran should have been building a nuclear weapon. Or is that analysis incorrect, do you think?
Well, you are correct. They've been lying through their teeth about nuclear weapons in Iran for decades. And the evidence is there. But you wouldn't know this if you watch Western media. Even Trump's opponents, when it comes to Iran, they will toe the line. We saw during his State of the Union address, the only time where all the seals clapped together and simultaneously was when he was attacking Iran. So Netanyahu has been saying it for almost 4 decades. The Israeli regime has been saying it for more than 4 decades, the lie that Iran is on the verge of a nuclear weapon. And we saw that during the war where Saddam Hussein invaded Iran, where the West gave him chemical weapons, and I survived 2 of those chemical attacks, as you know, Ayatollah Khomeini, Ayatollah Khamenei's predecessor, gave a fatwa saying, well, he said, no, we will not produce chemical weapons. And of course, the West tried to prevent Iran from even purchasing gas masks. But then Ayatollah Khamenei gave his own fatwa about nuclear weapons. And the IAEA which has always been in Iran and has for years carried out very intrusive inspections, they have never discovered any evidence that Iran at any point was attempting to build a nuclear weapon, at any point. Because the United States says, the U.S. intelligence agencies say since 2003, and that in 2003, Ayatollah Khamenei gave a fatwa, and so a move to build a nuclear weapon stopped. The IAEA doesn't even confirm that, and they're the ones on the ground. There's never been any evidence, but at least the U.S. admits, U.S. intelligence, from 2003 to just while back when Tulsi Gabbard under oath said that Iran is not developing nuclear weapons. It's clear that Iran's program is peaceful. So Witkoff is lying through his teeth. The US Secretary of State is lying through his teeth. And Trump, of course, is lying as well. And then in any case, Trump just 8-9 months ago said he obliterated Iran's nuclear program. And now Witkoff is saying within a week Iran can make a weapon. It's obvious they're lying. This is 2003 all over again. The only difference is that Iran is not Iraq. Iran is not Libya. Iran isn't even Vietnam. And I think we've already seen that. The Trump regime thought that this would end in a day or two and that Iran would be in chaos. Well, we're approaching a week now, and Iranian missiles and drones continue to hammer and strike, and Iranian factories, underground factories, continue to produce. And Iran still hasn't used its new technology. It's using old drones and older missiles for them almost exclusively. And in addition to that, Iranians' regional allies are still not fully engaged. So if Iran has a lot of room for escalation.
What would that escalation look like?
I think the destruction of
Would it would it include the use of Iran's hypersonic missiles, which we have not seen
Iran has
yet?
many weapon systems that they have not revealed yet. And by the way, with regards to nuclear weapons, a lot of people in Iran argue that. And two senior Iranian officials have said, two advisors to the leader, one who is now the chair of the Supreme National Security Council. Before he was the chair, Dr. Larijani said this, and so did Dr. Kharozi, who was a foreign minister for 8 years under President Khatami. Both were advisors to the leader. And they both said, Dr. Kharozi twice and Dr. Larijani once, that if there is an existential threat to Iran, then Iran's nuclear posture will change. But look how patient Iran is, and how, with regards to this, it's not acting irresponsibly, because a nuclear weapon creates all sorts of difficulties. All these dictatorships around Iran, Azerbaijan, Aliyev is an unstable dictator. In Kuwait, in Bahrain, in the Emirates, none of these, in Qatar, these are all family dictatorships. None of them are inherently stable regimes. Then they'll all want nuclear weapons. So that's one reason. And of course, there's the moral issue, which is the main reason. That's why Iran never produced chemical weapons. So, those who say that this fatwa has no meaning out of their ignorance of Shia Islam and of Islam, at least they can look back in history and see when the West was gassing us, we refused to gas their proxies. That's the difference between us and the West. Just as when they carry out genocide in Gaza, we support the Palestinians. That's the difference between us. When they strangle Cuba, we support the Cubans. When they take the Venezuelan nation hostage, we support the Venezuelan nation. When it comes to morality, it's actually the exact opposite of what the West says. Iran has always had the moral high ground. And Western propaganda has always been covering a reality that they are the ones who have no morality, zero morality. And we saw it in Ayatollah Khamenei's martyrdom. We saw it in the way in which they conducted themselves, and we see it when people are on the streets. Iran, I know you know quite a bit about Iran because of people close to you. Iran is a very highly educated country.
Yes, indeed.
Iran, there are more Persian language media outlets working against Iran than there are in Iran. Billions of dollars a year are being spent. Troll farms and bots and billions of dollars. So Iran is always hearing the disinformation. Iranians are always hearing the disinformation. Yet, despite all that, they come to the streets and remain steadfast under missile attacks. That's the difference between Iranians and Americans. Americans know nothing about Iran. They just hear they just know what they hear on CNN or Fox News, which is all rubbish. They're all controlled by the Epstein class. The same people who won't let us figure out who Epstein's real contacts are, all the files that are hidden away and the redacted information. That's the reality of the West. I think people are waking up to this fact in the West. I'm confident in that. But the propaganda about Iran is something much more difficult to deal with because, first of all, people have been hearing this propaganda for decades, and second of all, Iran is far away. It's this other. So it's easier to demonize it. At home, people are waking up. They saw Gaza. They know about Zionism. But when it comes to Iran, it's a bit too difficult for them to recognize that it's not what they thought it was.
Mohammed, what about prospects for a widening of the conflict? We hear about drones or missile attacks against Cyprus or against Azerbaijan, whether they're true or not. They just in terms of the propaganda value it serves to broaden the conflict. Do you see it actually broadening? And what are the chances that the Russians and the Chinese get more involved?
Well, if you believe Tucker Carlson's sources, and he is, of course, probably the most well-connected journalist in the world when it comes to U.S. politicians and the U.S. military, he says that in Saudi Arabia and Qatar, they've arrested Israeli Mossad agents who wanted to plant bombs and carry out explosions. So obviously, the Israeli regime has a vested interest in creating chaos and turning countries against one another. And that's what the empire has done historically, divide and rule. So that is, and the Iranians have denied firing drones at Aramco. And I think they also said they did not fire anything at Azerbaijan. But in any case, if the war does expand for whatever reason, these regimes won't last. Aliyev is a dictator. He'll fall. Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, if this continues for a while, they won't survive. At least the regimes won't survive. And the Emirates will never be the Emirates again. None of these entities will ever be. And this is a huge loss for the United States because these are key proxies of the United States, which the United States milks. They've been milking them since they've discovered oil and gas. So the financial punishment being inflicted on the United States is not just the rise in the price of oil. It's the loss of this purchasing power that these regimes have, which help the U.S. economy. And also, and I'm not an economist, so I should be very careful not to push this too far, but also it can be very dangerous for the US dollar because of the petrodollar, because the dollar, which is already in serious trouble, is powerful largely because of the fact that petroleum and natural gas is bought and sold largely in dollars. So there are lots of vulnerabilities for the United States. And these regimes, if they collapse, I think it'll be much worse for the United States. And the United States can't control this area. They can't bring troops. They cannot win a war on the ground. There's just too many. There's Iraq. There's the resistance in Iraq. There's Yemen. These are big countries. Yemen already fought a 7-week war. And during those 7 weeks, every day we were hearing from Trump that they're winning. We're hearing from Hegseth that they were wiping them all out. And then after 7 weeks, Trump said they capitulated and he walked away. and they hadn't capitulated, they won the war. Yemen, Ansarullah, or what they like to call the Houthis in the West, which is, in my opinion, more of a derogatory slur. But anyway, the point is that the United States is no longer in any position to wage that sort of war, and it will not win that war. And it will bring down the global economy, and it will bring down the US economy for multiple reasons. So, yes, if the war expands, and Ayatollah Khamenei said it will be a regional war, and we're already seeing a regional war. But the Iranians and their allies are not escalating swiftly. They feel that time is on their side, that they can escalate whenever they feel the need to. They control the situation on the ground. And from the bombastic statements coming out of the White House and the Department of War, it's already clear that they're in trouble.